Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive on biohacking.
Okay.
We've got a really interesting collection of articles here. And it seems like you're already pretty interested in biohacking, so we're going to try to go beyond the basics here.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this stuff. It's like people taking their health into their own hands, becoming their own science experiments.
Exactly. It's like DIY biology.
hmm
So maybe for anyone listening who's new to this whole thing, what exactly are we talking about when we say biohacking?
Well, it's a pretty broad term. I mean, it can be as simple as like changing up your diet or your sleep schedule, or it can get way more complex, like people using wearable trackers or even implanting devices.
Okay, so we've got the everyday stuff and then the like Black Mirror stuff and everything in between, I guess.
Right. And the thing is, it's not just about living longer. It's about like living better,
Yes.
optimizing your biology to reach your full potential.
That's a really good point. I think that's what makes it so fascinating. And one of these articles I was reading was talking about something called digital biohacking. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, that one was really interesting. It's like using technology to personalize your diet
Exactly.
and make it, I don't know, maybe easier to stick with, more effective.
Yeah, it kind of takes the guesswork out of it. Like no more generic diet books. Instead, you've got an algorithm telling you exactly what to eat.
And then it's not just about you, right? They were looking at the environmental impact of different food choices, too. So you could be hacking your health and helping the planet at the same time.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. We've mentioned a few things already. Intermittent fasting, cold therapy. What's the actual science behind these methods?
Right, right. So like with intermittent fasting, it's not just about eating less. There's some evidence that it can actually trigger cellular repair processes and change your hormone levels, which can lead to some pretty impressive benefits like better insulin sensitivity.
So it's like giving your body a break from digesting all the time and letting it focus on other things.
Exactly. And then there's cold therapy,
Okay.
which I'll admit it's not for everyone. But I mean, people who swear by it, they say it can reduce inflammation, improve your mood,
Ah,
maybe even boost your immune system.
intriguing. It seems like there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the tech side of things, which is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to this digital biohacking study. They kept talking about something called a digital twin experiment.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
Okay, so basically, they created a digital model of a person's metabolism, like a virtual representation of their body, tracking all the data, calorie intake, how their body processes nutrients, weight changes.
So they've got this digital version of you,
Right.
and they can see how different things affect it.
Exactly. And they can use that to personalize your diet plan based on what they learned from your digital twin. They called it a personalized metabolic avatar, or a PMA for short.
A personalized metabolic avatar. That sounds like something out of a movie. So how does this actually work in practice?
So they got 4 volunteers who tracked everything they ate and how much they exercised for a whole year.
Wow, that's dedication.
I know, right? And they used all that data to create these PMAs, which are basically AI-powered digital replicas of each person's metabolism.
So they built a digital twin for each of these volunteers, and then what?
And then this is the really cool part. They used the PMAs to simulate how different dietary changes might impact their health.
So they're running virtual experiments on these PMAs.
Yeah, like testing out different biohacking strategies without any real-world risk.
That's fascinating. Did they find any, groundbreaking weight loss secrets?
Well, they did find that, on average, the digital twins lost a significant amount of weight when they followed the personalized biohacking diets. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more.
They compared those simulations to the volunteers' actual weight loss over that year. And get this, the closer the volunteers stuck to the recommendations from their digital twin, the closer their real-life weight loss matched the simulations.
Wow, that's actually really impressive.
Right.
It's like proof
Yeah.
that this personalized approach could actually work.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Instead of following some generic diet plan, you're getting advice tailored to your own body.
Exactly. And what's even cooler is that the recommendations weren't anything crazy like, cutting out entire food groups or anything.
So it wasn't all kale smoothies and protein shakes.
No, not at all. It was more about making small, sustainable changes, like swapping a sugary drink for sparkling water or adding in more plant-based meals throughout the week.
Okay, so it's all about making those little tweaks.
Right. And they were also able to factor in things like the carbon footprint of different food choices, so you could be eating healthier and making more sustainable choices at the same time.
Okay, now we're talking. This digital biohacking thing is starting to sound pretty good.
It's definitely an exciting area of research.
It is. But let's be real. How accessible is this kind of technology right now? Like, can I download an app and get my own personalized metabolic avatar tomorrow?
Well, not quite yet. It's still in the research phase, you know. This study only had 4 volunteers, so they need to do a lot more research to see if it works for larger groups of people and different lifestyles.
So it's not like you can just walk into your doctor's office and get this done.
Not yet, anyway. But, I mean, the potential is there.
Oh, definitely.
Imagine a future where you could track your health markers, experiment with different interventions, and see how your digital twin responds, all in real time.
It's like having a window into your own biology.
Exactly.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty amazing, but with any new technology, especially one that's so closely tied to our health, we have to talk about the potential downsides. What are some of the concerns people have about this kind of digital biohacking?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns is accuracy. I mean, these digital twins, they're just models, right? Simulations. So their predictions are only as good as the data they're based on.
So it's not like a crystal ball that can predict your health future with 100% certainty.
Right. And there's always going to be a level of individual variation that even the most advanced algorithms can't fully capture.
That's a good point.
And then, of course, there's the issue of data privacy.
Right.
We're talking about some pretty sensitive information here, so it's crucial that it's handled responsibly.
Absolutely.
I think it's important to remember that biohacking, whether it's digital or not, is really a journey of self-discovery. You know, it's about paying attention to your body, experimenting responsibly, and seeking guidance from healthcare professionals along the way.
It's a balancing act, really.
Yeah.
Embracing the possibilities while also being aware of the limitations. And I think that's a good place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. So where do we go from there? I mean, they've got these digital twins, these PMAs.
Okay, so now they can use those PMAs to test things out. Like, let's say you want to try a keto diet, right?
Right.
They can input that into the PMA and see what it would do to your metabolism.
Oh, that's cool. So you can basically preview how different diets might affect you.
Exactly. And it's not just about weight loss either.
Right.
They can look at all sorts of things like cholesterol levels, blood sugar, all that.
So it's really about getting a personalized picture of your health.
Right. And that's, I think, the real power of this technology. It's not one size fits all. It's tailored to you.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what did they find? Did these PMAs actually work? Did they lose weight?
Well, like I said, the digital twins, on average, they did lose a significant amount of weight on these biohacking diets.
Okay, that's promising.
Right. But here's the thing. They also compared those simulations to what actually happened to the volunteers over that year.
Did it match up? Did the real people lose weight too?
That's the crazy part, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the closer the volunteers followed the recommendations, the more their real weight loss matched what the simulations showed.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing.
Right. It really shows how powerful this personalized approach could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like having your own personal nutritionist.
Exactly. Except it's an AI.
Right. So tell me more about these biohacking diets. What were they actually eating? Was it like all super restrictive?
That's the thing. That's what surprised me. It wasn't about making these huge, crazy changes.
All right.
It was more about, like, small adjustments.
I see.
Like maybe instead of having that soda, you have sparkling water with lemon. Or, you know, maybe you try to incorporate 1 or 2 more plant-based meals into your week.
So it's all about those little swaps and changes. That actually seems a lot more doable than I was imagining.
Right. And because it's personalized, it's more likely to be something you can actually stick with.
That's a really good point. I'm all for sustainable changes,
Yeah,
not crash diets.
exactly. And on top of all that, they were able to consider the environmental impact of those food choices, too.
Oh, right. We talked about that earlier. So they're not just thinking about your health, they're thinking about the planet, too.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's like a win-win. You're eating healthier, and you're making choices that are better for the environment.
I love it. Okay, so this digital biohacking thing, it's personalized, it's sustainable, it's good for the planet. Sign me up. But realistically, when are we going to start seeing this kind of technology available to the public?
Well, that's the thing. It's still pretty early stages, right? Like, this study was really small, so they need to do a lot more research
Right.
to see if it works for more people, different lifestyles.
So no app for that yet.
Not just yet. But who knows? Maybe someday soon you'll have your own PMA guiding your every meal.
I'll be first in line. But in all seriousness, are there any concerns about this technology? It sounds almost too good to be true.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that it's still just a model.
Right.
It's a simulation,
Right.
and it's only as good as the data it's based on.
So it's not a perfect system.
Exactly. And everyone's different, so what works for one person might not work for another.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there's always the question of, unintended consequences.
Right, like we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly. But I think it's definitely a promising area of research and something to keep an eye on. And it raises a lot of interesting questions about the future of health and technology.
For sure. And it all ties back into this idea of biohacking, right? Like
Mhm.
taking control of your own health and using technology to your advantage.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this has been fascinating.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here today,
Yeah.
but we're not done yet, right?
Nope. We've still got more to dive into.
Okay, so let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the bigger implications of biohacking. So we've talked about some pretty amazing advancements in biohacking,
Right.
but as with any new technology, there are always ethical considerations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this stuff raises all sorts of questions about what it means to be human.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest concerns is this idea of equity. Like what happens if these biohacking technologies become so advanced that they're only accessible to the wealthy?
Right. It creates this whole new level of inequality. Like you've got the biohaves and the
It's
biohave-nots.
like something out of a science fiction movie, right? Where people are literally being enhanced and others are left behind.
Exactly. And it's not just about access to technology. There's also the question of who gets to decide what's ethical, what's acceptable.
Right. Where do we draw the line?
Exactly. And how do we make sure these technologies are used responsibly and not just for enhancing certain abilities or creating some kind of superhuman elite?
It's a slippery slope for
Yeah.
sure. And it's not just the high-tech stuff either, right?
Mm.
Even with these more DIY biohacking practices, there's always a risk.
Oh, yeah, totally. People experimenting on themselves without really knowing the long-term effects.
And that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations now while this field is still developing. We need to figure out how to balance innovation with responsibility.
Totally. And I mean, part of it is just education, right? Like people need to understand the potential risks and benefits before they start messing around with their own biology.
Right, like don't just go injecting yourself with CRISPR because you saw it on YouTube.
Exactly. It's about making informed choices, not just jumping on the latest biohacking bandwagon.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are your final thoughts on biohacking? Where do you see this all going in the future?
Honestly, I think we're just scratching the surface. Like the potential here is incredible, but so are the risks.
That seems to be the theme here, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think if we proceed with caution, if we really think about the ethical implications of what we're doing, biohacking has the potential to revolutionize not just our health, but our entire relationship with our own bodies.
That's a really powerful thought.
It is. It's like we're on the verge of something really big here. We just have to make sure we don't screw it up.
Well said. To our listeners out there, if you're as fascinated by biohacking as we are, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, stay informed.
Exactly. And remember, your health is your own responsibility. Make smart choices, listen to your body, and don't be afraid to seek guidance from qualified healthcare professionals.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been an incredible deep dive, and we can't wait to see what amazing discoveries await us in the world of biohacking. Until next time.
See you then.